Welcome to the life you crave. Simple and sustainable weight loss for women who have better things to do than diet. I'm your host, Lia Pinelli. I help ambitious, badass women stop overeating, overworking, and overgiving to lose weight from a place of love. I'll help you simplify weight loss, end your overwhelm, and create the life you crave. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe to this podcast. Let's get started.
Hey, Food Freedom for Fempreneurs members. I just learned about this thing called quitters. Have you guys heard this term before? I had never heard it until recently. I was in some group and somebody mentioned it. So I looked it up. And apparently, January 10th has been coined quitters because data analysts studying fitness apps found, according to usage patterns, that's when most people quit their health habits. I think we can extend that to most New Year's resolutions. Of course, being that this group is about food freedom, I'm going to focus on food, eating pattern and behavior goals, and speak directly to those of you who maybe have already quit. What is this? Today is January 23rd. So we're a little over 3 weeks into the new year. Maybe you've already quit. Maybe you want to quit. Maybe you are thinking about quitting. Maybe you still are feeling determined, but you have all of this historical evidence that you will quit eventually. So I really, really want to talk to you guys today, to the quitters or the potential quitters. And I want to talk to you guys today specifically about it because, first of all, there's no shame in quitting. I know a lot of people, I have a lot of friends who are like, oh, no, once I commit to something, like I have to follow through. And if you guys have watched my perfectionist trainings before, I've never really been that person. I'm pretty good with quitting on something that I think is a waste of my time. What I mean by that is, for example, I have no problem starting a book and not finishing it if it's excellent. There are more books in this world that I want to read that I will ever have time to read. So why would I waste my time finishing a mediocre book, right? So I have no problem quitting stuff that I really think it doesn't serve me. Here's the thing. When we make resolutions or when we make commitments to ourselves, whether you call it a resolution or not, and I'm speaking, of course, to those of you who are participating in the Breaking Up But Staying Friends with Sugar Challenge this month, which, by the way, is still free until February 6th, 2025. So you can still do the challenge. It's 4 trainings. You can watch them all back to back in 2.5 hours or something. It's not that long. Each training's about. And then you can do the activities and you can quit sugar. But for those of you who are going through that, or maybe you make commitments to go to the gym, or maybe you make commitments to do X, Y, or Z, whatever it was, what I want you to hear me say is that there's no shame in it because there's actually 4 reasons why you were set up to fail in the first place with your goal. So what I want to do is I want to go through and explain to you these 4 reasons why you were set up to fail with your goal and not because you are inherently flawed. Now just hear me out, because I know some of you are like, okay, yeah, right, Leah, I had a goal to quit eating all of the holiday chocolates and yet I keep eating them. I don't think that the goal is flawed. You're right. That's a worthy goal. It's a worthy goal. But I want to go through and 4 reasons why we tend to quit before we've even gotten close to where we want to go. Or a lot of us even, I know because probably most of you in here have done every diet in the book. You actually got to where you wanted to go, but then eventually you just went right back to where you started and maybe even, and then some, right? So let's talk about the problem there, because I know that you think the problem is you and the problem is not you. The problem is actually the goal. So the first reason why goals fail, even breaking up with sugar, even if you were following my challenge, my program, even if you were following my program, right? And I set the goal for you. So how can I stand here now and say that the goal fails? Well, here's the first reason. It's because that goal is not sustainable for you. In the version of you that you are right now, the goal of quitting sugar is not sustainable for you right now. What do I mean by that? Well, first of all, this is a big, huge, super common pitfall that everybody makes with goals. We make the goals too big. They're too lofty. Now, I'm a big fan of setting, these, what Martha Beck calls wildly improbable goals, WIGs, right? These like super big goals, right? Because then they really stretch you to reach your goals. But that's not what quitting sugar is. Sugar is not some big, huge, extraordinary goal. Sugar is like just a daily habit goal that you want to set. It's not a huge goal, but it is hugely hard to do. It is extremely hard to do because of all the reasons we talked about in the sugar challenge, right? Namely because sugar is everywhere and sugar has addictive properties, right? So, I mean, come on, like you are set up to struggle with sugar if sugar is a thing for you. So when I say that the goal is unsustainable, that the goal is too big, it doesn't mean that you throw the sugar goal out. It means that we have to actually make the goal smaller and we have to make the goal more sustainable, which brings me to the second reason that we often don't meet our goals. The second reason is because the goal, the way that you set it up, was unpleasurable. There was not enough pleasure in the process. So I talked specifically about pleasure on day 3 of the Breaking Up with Sugar Challenge. So you can go back and watch that one. If you want what you're doing to be sustainable, remember, one of the biggest pitfalls is we make the goal too big and we make the goal too painful. Your brain is never going to get on board with you doing something that is painful over and over again if it requires a bunch of effort to do it as well, right? Avoiding sugar requires an extraordinary amount of effort because it's everywhere. So you have to infuse pleasure in this. This applies to any goal. So what I always tell my clients is when my clients join the Fempire, what they want most of all is they want to change their eating behaviors. And that's what we're doing here with sugar this month, right? They want to change their eating behaviors. Why? Because they know that if their behaviors change, then the result will change. Their bodies will change because of the behavioral change. So the key to behavioral change, to sustained behavioral change, there's actually 2 keys to it. But the first key is that you have to actually enjoy what's on the other side, right? So what I mean by that is I always tell my clients, you have to love what you're eating. So if you come into the Fempire and all of my clients with my guidance and some training, they create their own protocol, so to speak, their own way of eating that works for them. No 2 client eats the same diet in the same way. Why? Because we're all freaking different, right? Genetically different. We are ethnically different. There are so many differences between us. Why would we all eat the same things? Why would we all eat the same thing? That makes no sense. So everybody designs a protocol that works for them. We all have different preferences and tastes. But here's the thing. If you don't love a new pattern, a new way of eating, you're not going to sustain it for very long. Remember, I taught about the motivational triad. I think it was day 1 of the Breaking Up and Staying Friends with Sugar Challenge that says that we are hardwired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. So if you create some kind of diet for yourself or some kind of deprivation-based sugar breakup, your brain is going to register, this is painful. This is uncomfortable. I don't like this. I need to go seek some pleasure. Quick hit of pleasure is sugar. So those first 2, if you're already thinking about quitting your goal, it's because you don't like it enough. You don't like the process enough. If you really loved what you were eating, and this again is what I teach in the Fempires, how to actually eat foods that you love without them resulting in unwanted eating behaviors and unwanted weight, you have to find pleasure in it. And I don't mean you have to go seeking pleasure. I mean, you have to actually set it up to be pleasurable. And it's totally possible. You have to find the pleasure, or you have to create a pleasurable plan. And therefore, if it's pleasurable, it will be sustainable because the only thing that's sustainable is pleasure. The third reason why we often give up on our goals is because you didn't go out and buy yourself a new brain. What? Okay, I'm joking here a little bit, but okay, I said earlier that my Fempire clients come to me because they know that changing their eating behaviors will change the result that they're getting with their bodies, right? We know that. But here's the thing. The mistake that people make, the mistake that I made for decades, the mistake that people make is they focus on their actions. They focus on their behaviors, right? So I just need to go to the gym. I just need to lift heavy weights. I just need to stop eating sugar. I just need to start going for walks, right? All of it is very action focused, action oriented, and your brain is spending all this time focused on changing your actions. But here's the missing piece. Our actions are actually driven by our feelings. So you have a feeling that drives an action, right? And even before the feeling, you have a thought that informed the feeling. So our thinking drives our feelings, and then our feelings drive our action, and our actions give us every result we have in our lives. The reason that this is so important is because if you're focused on your actions, you are likely neglecting your thoughts and your feelings. And so what ends up happening is your brain just always will revert back to the old pattern, because the pattern begins in your brain, and you didn't address the brain, right? So that the actual skill, the reason that women in the Fempire, what we do in the Fempire is I actually teach my Fempire clients how to start at the root, how to change the way that they're thinking to create a different feeling. And the feeling then creates, drives, informs a different action. That is sustainable. Why? Because you're not fighting against your own self, right? If I'm telling myself, oh, I just need to go to the gym, I just need to go lift heavy weights, I just need to stop eating sugar. But my brain is busy thinking, I so love cheesecake. I miss cheesecake. I want cheesecake. How come my sister can have cheesecake and I can't? Other people can have cheesecake. All those thoughts, that isn't driving going to the gym. People who go to the gym, who really love it, who go all the time, they love it. They like to go. They might say that they have to motivate themselves to go. And that might be true on some days. But I will tell you what, the more that you like something, the more you do the thing. So if you like cheesecake, the more you're going to eat it. If you like working out, the more you're going to do it. But the thing is liking something, having a preference for something starts in your brain. Now, I'm not saying that you can convince yourself to love running. I hate running. That's why I always use it as an example. When I talk about changing your thinking, what I'm actually talking about is starting to change your thoughts about the relationship that you have to sugar, about the relationship that you have to exercise or the gym or whatever it is. I'm not saying don't go out and find a form of exercise that you really love. Actually, I think you should totally do that. That's the way easier way. But the thing is I also don't think that you have to completely hate sugar. I always use this example with my clients. This usually has to do with not loving their bodies. But what I'll say to them is, look, you don't have to hate your body in order to want to change your body. You can actually love the body that you're in now and still want a different body, right? I'm from San Francisco. I can love San Francisco and still have a desire to go live in Hawaii, right? Like I can love both. I don't have to hate San Francisco in order to want to go live in Hawaii, right? Like that makes sense. So my point is that you do have to change your thinking in order to feel something different, in order to do something different. But changing your thinking doesn't necessarily mean that you think thoughts that are untrue. This isn't some kind of manifestation. I'm just going to say this over and over and up in the mirror until I believe it. That's not what it is either. Shifting in your perspective with food, in your relationship with food. So the first is it has to be a sustainable goal. The second is it has to be pleasurable or else it's not sustainable. And then the third reason that you quit or are thinking about quitting is because your brain is hard. Your brain is the driver for everything. And you're focused on the action. You're not focused on changing your thinking. Now, changing your thinking is something that it's a huge, it's like 90% of what we do in the Fempire, maybe 75% of what we do in the Fempire. So obviously I cannot share it all here. But if you want to know more about that, you should drop the word Fempire in the comments. And the last part, number 4, The fourth reason that we quit on our goals and quit early or, just quit in general is because we didn't actually make a decision about, and I'm talking specifically about sugar right now, but this definitely applies to other things. What I mean by that is I invited you to do a challenge called breaking up, but staying friends with sugar, right? And the idea there is that I don't believe in deprivation. I don't believe that you have to abstain from sugar. Some people do choose to, which I totally respect, but I don't think you have to. At least the majority of us, I think, don't necessarily have to abstain completely and forever. But what I mean by a decision is a lot of us didn't really, we knew we wanted to quit. We didn't exactly make a decision about what we want our lives to look like with sugar after the quitting is done. Quitting sugar. What do you want your relationship with sugar to be like, right? Like if you don't want to eat it every day all the time, you don't want to have the cravings for it, you don't want to have the habit, what do you want your relationship with sugar to look like? How often do you eat it? Are there certain types of sugar you do eat and certain types you don't? Are there certain sweets and treats that are worth it to you and others that are not? Like really thinking about what would you love for your relationship with sugar to look like in the long run? Like forever, like sustainably look like. I don't mean realistically. People will often be like, well, when I say sustainably, they think that I'm talking about realistically, as if sugar somehow gets to decide how frequently you eat it. No. You 100% have full control of what goes in your mouth. So there's no realistic relationship with sugar. You could choose to never eat it again if you wanted to. I don't suggest it. But you could, right? My point is that you get to decide how frequently and how much you eat sugar and what types of sugar you eat. I teach my clients that there are 4 stages to transformation. And this is really important. If you're watching this, I hope you write this down. There are 4 stages to transformation. The first stage to transformation is education, right? We need good information. You need to understand all about the thing that you are trying to transform, right? So for my clients, for example, the first phase is education, and it is around really understanding why we're overeating in the first place, the biochemical response that our bodies have to sugar and to processed foods and things like that, to understand, oh, no wonder I'm so hungry. No wonder I crave sweets. No wonder I can't release unwanted weight. No wonder I eat so much more than other people. That was me. That's the first piece, is like, okay, I get it. Understand the information about why I'm in the position that I'm in. The second phase to transformation is application. So that's where you take what you just learned in the education piece and you actually start to apply it to your life. Most of us do this pretty well, right? If you ever learned about a diet and then done the diet, you did it, right? You did the education, the application part. But here's the difference is most people stop at application. But to actually transform who you're being with sugar, to actually transform who you're being with food, to actually transform who you're being with the gym or with your partner or whatever is any freaking transformation that you are trying to get, there are 2 more freaking stages after application that are integral. The third stage is integration. So there's a difference between applying what you know to your life and then really integrating it into your life. What I mean by that is, let's say that you have learned, about the importance of, eating a variety of the colors of, the plants, the colors of the rainbow. So in the beginning, when you first really learn about, oh, this is so important, my gut microbiome, I really want to be healthy, I'm going to start eating more plants, more veggies, more fruits, blah, blah, blah. So then you you get all excited, you get your little shopping list, you go shopping, you do the thing, you come home, you eat the thing. Quitter's Day, right? Like a week or 2 goes by and you're like doing it. And it's so great. And then all of a sudden it goes away. And that's because you applied what you learned, but you didn't actually integrate what you learned into your life. Meaning integration would look like you set it as a recurring item on your shopping list. You regularly are going to the grocery store and purchasing these things. These foods are regularly in your fridge without too much thought, right? You open the fridge thinking you're going to eat the leftover pizza, and then you see all the veggies and you're like, oh yeah, I made that shit. Okay, I'm going to eat the veggies, right? That's integration. That's where like it's now kind of become part of your patterning. You still have to think about it a little bit, but it's beyond application. Application, you're really thinking about it. You're making the list. You're doing it all. You're trying to figure it out. This grocery store has this, that one has that. And now you just know your spots, your grocery stores. It's the integration piece, right? You've got it integrated. You're just doing it. But it still requires some effort. The last phase, and this is so often the phase that so few of us get to, especially when it comes to food or whatever the goal is the fourth phase is embodiment. And embodiment is where it's at. Because what I mean by embodiment is the phase that you get to when you no longer even have to think about it. It has become automatic, just like walking, right? Or breathing. You just do it. It is what it looks like when I go to a restaurant. There are certain foods that I'm going to look for on that menu and certain foods that I know I want to avoid on that menu. I just skim the menu and look for my stuff, right? The stuff that I like. And I know I've embodied being a woman who eats in this way. My husband knows that we always need to have certain things in the fridge, right? When he goes to the grocery store, I have a list and it's just always there and I always eat it, right? And because it's just who I am. I don't think about it. I'm never like, maybe I want to make a ham sandwich. Although randomly I had a craving for a ham sandwich a couple days ago, but that's some hormonal shit, right? So when we're talking about making a decision, it's not just a decision to quit sugar. It's a decision to be someone different with sugar. It's a decision to transform yourself. And here's the freaking coolest part of all this is that transformation process, those 4 phases of transformation, that applies to everything, whatever transformation you're seeking. So what that means is once you've done it with one thing, like for me, once I transformed myself with food, I was like, oh shit, what else can I transform, right? You feel like you have like a magic wand because you're like, I can apply this in so many other areas of my life. And I did. I applied it to my career. I applied it to who I was being. I applied it to so many aspects of my life, my relationships. I'm like, this is how you do it. I can learn. I can educate myself. I can apply it. And then I can integrate that. And then I can embody it. It takes, though, a commitment. And that's what I'm talking about is it takes a commitment, which is that decision, the decision to actually be somebody different with food, not just quit sugar, right? That is the missing piece. And here's the thing is those other 3 things that I talked about, they all build into this last one, number 4. Because in order to be different with food, in order to actually transform yourself, it has to be sustainable. It has to be pleasurable. And you have to build a new brain, right? Because you're going to be somebody different. You're going to have different thoughts and different feelings. So you're going to build different neural pathways, different patterns of thought. And that's what we do in the Fempire. Like drop it in the chat, send me a DM. Let's talk about it. The last thing I'll say, just to sum this up, is that having a community of support is actually, it's not a part of the transformation, the 4 phases of transformation, but it is the foundation of those 4 phases. Because maybe it's more like the foundation of embodiment or integration, but actually I want to say it's the foundation of all 4, right? It's so important. And the reason for that is because we are influenced all day, every day by the world around us. So if you have set up a world that is familiar to you, and now you're trying to transform yourself within that world, in order to do that, you really need to then surround yourself in a new world. Doesn't mean you have to leave your old world, but you just need the immersion experience. You know, I'm a Spanish speaker. I used to be a Spanish teacher and I studied Spanish in undergrad. It was my minor and I loved studying Spanish. And I would practice and I found what did they call them? Like a little charla partner or something, like a chat partner or whatever, you know, from Spain or Mexico or something. The point is that I could only get so far learning Spanish by educating myself and then applying it in my life. I didn't actually become fluent in Spanish until I went and lived, inserted myself, immersed myself, integrated myself in a Spanish-speaking country. And it was only then, after spending a full year in a Spanish-speaking country, that I was able to gain fluency. Now, I went with a lot of other Americans. I went to UC Berkeley and all of the UCs go together. So I went with a whole bunch of other UC kids, but I was like, I'm not hanging any Americans. I'm here to learn Spanish. So I only live with Spaniards. I only took upper division coursework in the history of art in Spanish. Didn't understand a freaking word those professors were saying. But the point is that I was so committed to immersing myself. And when we left the program, I was only one of 2 that actually became fluent in our whole big group that actually gained fluency while there. And the other one who did, because she totally had a Spanish boyfriend and she did very similar to that I did. She spent almost all of her time speaking Spanish, but that was mainly because of her boyfriend. The point here is you have to intentionally immerse yourself if you really want to gain fluency, right? And I know you know that foreign language. Being different with food is a foreign language, unfamiliar to you. You don't know it yet. You don't know how to do it yet. But when you learn it, when you really immerse yourself, all of a sudden it becomes second nature. I remember we would all talk about how we couldn't wait to dream in Spanish, because if you dreamt in Spanish, then you knew that it was really like you were fluent, steeped in you. It's the same exact idea. It's just now Spanish can roll off my tongue. It's a little rusty, to be honest, since I moved to New York, but it has become a part of who I am. I am bilingual. It is a part of who I am. It's not something that I have to try to do, right? I've done it. It's integrated. I might not always be as fluent as I was when I lived in Spain, but I will always be fluent in Spanish, right? A little bit of attention. This is why I say to my clients too, the goal is not actually weight loss. The goal isn't even really behavioral change, although that is definitely the pathway. The goal is to live at your natural weight with minimal effort. The goal is to live at your natural weight. And your natural weight, by the way, is your happy weight. It's not anything on a BMI chart. The goal is to live at your natural weight with minimal effort. And by minimal effort, I don't mean that, you can't go lift heavy weights. It just means that you don't have to think too much about it because it's been integrated and you embody it. You don't have to think about it. That is food freedom. That is how you free up your mental real estate so that you can funnel all of that energy to building a baller business, creating the wealth and the health and the legacy, a different legacy for the next generation of girls. That is how you do it.
You've been listening to The Life You Crave. I lost 30 pounds years ago without dieting, willpower, or deprivation. I'm on a mission to help other women, including you, do the same. You can book a free weight loss strategy session with me over at liapinelli.com. That's liapinelli.com. See you on our next call or on the next episode. And remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on iTunes.